under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Let's just start with, if you want to participate in unscheduled audience participation, if you can get your cards into Angela right there on the corner. If you're not familiar, they're up on the desk, right there by the bowl of water. Would you take attendance, please?
President D'Alessandro?
Here.
Vice President Schaefer?
Here.
Secretary Reese, present. Treasurer Hanser?
Present.
Trustee McDonough? Trustee Summers?
Here.
Trustee Whitney?
Here.
Thank you. There aren't any changes to the board agenda that I have. Do you have any?
The only thing I'd like to add under my report is we did a reorganization of our business department today, finalized it, and I'd like to report that to the board.
Okay. And you want to put that in your report?
Right.
Rather than right now? Okay. Very good. Item 3, scheduled public comments for agenda items. Did we have any submitted yesterday? Okay. We have a consent agenda from our June 13th meeting, or meetings, special meeting, regular meeting, and our closed session meeting. And there's a recommendation. Mary, please.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support? Dr. Reese, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now to your superintendent's report.
So let me start first with the reorganization of the business office. As you know, as we reported at several meetings ago, our 5-year financial forecast indicates that we have some pretty challenging financial times ahead of us. We've put several processes and protocols in place in order to try to prepare for that and minimize expenditures wherever we could. One of those practices is what we call position control, so that anytime anyone asks for a new position in the district, or any time a position is vacated through a retirement or a resignation, we analyze that position very carefully. We try to determine whether the level of need for the work that position would do. We try to see if there's any other way that work can be done. And if, in fact, there needs to be some added position, we then try to find a way to make it the most efficient addition that we can. So what I'm saying is that basically no position is automatically hired anymore. No position gets added without a thorough review. We recently had an administrative position vacated through retirement. That was the position of Director of Maintenance and Facilities, Tony Sarkins. Many of you probably know him. He's retired. He's doing well, and everything is good with him. I reviewed that position with Sam Barna, to whom that position reported, and we have decided to reorganize the department under Sam so that we will not have to replace Tony, which will be a significant savings in the budget. But we do have to shift some work around in order to make sure that everything gets done and gets done well. So first, Sam will assume all of the work related to the Director of Maintenance and Facilities, as he is Assistant Superintendent over that particular department currently. In order to allow him to take on that extra work, we are going to change the position of Courtney Makowski to a full-time budget director, so that we will not lose any ground with budgeting and details around budgeting and preparation of those things. And in order to have Courtney be released in order to do that fully and well, we are going to bring in a beginning level financial specialist to pick up some of the purchasing duties and some of the other kinds of tracking duties that Courtney now has. All of this will basically spend about half or less of what replacing that other position would have cost us. But also, in addition to this, it's going to increase budget oversight. And when you're entering a period of financial deficit, you really need to increase budget oversight you'll be getting, instead of the budget amendments that you typically got in February, you'll be getting those probably 4 times a year, not just 2, if not more often. So our budget oversight will be increased. We don't have any consistency in purchasing right now because we have too many fingers in that pie from too many different areas, and this is going to bring some consistency to purchasing, another way for us to watch costs. And then, of course, we're going to have a very high level of oversight in facilities and maintenance. If there is a problem in that area where we need a real specialty service, we will have a small amount of money set aside in order to call in the specialists, whether it be plumbing, whether it be heating, whether it be whatever else, the roofs, whatever it might be that goes on in the district. This is going to start July 1st, and I just wanted to make you aware of it. And if, as we go forward and try to readjust to our new fiscal reality, there may be other reorganizations or other changes, and I will bring them to you as they occur.
Okay.
Now I get to go up there.
There you go.
I know. This will be a first. Thank you, Anita, for not totally messing up my presentation as you were
I
fiddling
was
with the PowerPoint.
very cautious.
And I know you're going to be timing me. So I'm on a clock here. Don't start yet. I'm just putting aside my cane. And go. So, thank you. We have the results back from our culture climate survey. And there are a lot of slides here. But I want to point out to you that we are not going to talk about every one. I'm going to give you a very brief overview. The slides are here because I want you to take them home for homework and study them at your leisure. This is the culture survey we did. These are the areas that were covered in that culture survey. You have academic support, you have student support, school leadership, family involvement, safety and behavior. And then we did a special section on communications because I know that's really important to us. And then we had some survey information that was given to just students around some of their perceptions and to just staff around building development. This is the same that was done 2 years ago, and so you'll see as I go through the slides the comparison of how we did this past spring and compared to how we did in the previous survey. The survey people who collected the data, we did not collect the data ourselves. It was all sent in to K-12 Insight. They collected the data. They made some summaries and insights here for you, which I'm not going to go through because instead I'm going to show you all of the data. This is who participated. We had more participation this year than last year, especially from parents. We had over 1,000 people submit their surveys to us, and in 2021 we had 411. We were also able to gain more input from our staff, 453. The prior survey had 171. Of that, 418, we had the total pool of staff was 418 certified and 403 other. Most of the staff that turned in these surveys were certified, so it's mostly the teacher, certified teacher voice. And then in students, we had 992 students total, 631 from the high school and 361 from the middle school. So that's who participated. We asked the one big question, which was how would you rate the overall quality of the education at this school? And you can see that parents, in terms of excellent to good, scored above 80%. Staff, between excellent and good, scored above 90%, and students were at about 60%. These slides will also show you how that compared from the prior year. So you will see that we really shifted in terms of the parent view between excellent and good. You will see from the staff view, we also shifted in the same way between excellent and good. And you will see from the student view that it was a little shift, but not quite as much as the other two groups. Now, in terms of school quality, there are several dimensions that are measured, and these are the dimensions. So as I said before, they look at academic support, student support, school leadership, family involvement, safety, and behavior. Green on these charts are parents, blue is staff, and gold is students. You will see on all areas, staff tends to score us higher, parents are second highest, and students are the lowest. When you look at how we scored the year before, in terms of the parents, you'll see very little difference except down for safety and behavior. That's where we had a slippage. You'll see under staff, we had the same slippage down below, safety and behavior. And you'll see for students, they were pretty close from one year to the other. What's important at looking at these dimensions is that within academic support, this survey gets you down to very specific questions. For instance, we get to look at expectations for students, whether or not those expectations are clearly explained, whether or not students are challenged by their schoolwork, whether or not teachers are giving timely feedback and also helpful feedback, and whether or not we are successful in showing how our lessons relate to real life. And here again, you can see the same green, blue, gold pattern in terms of high to low scores. And you'll also see at the very bottom, we had the lowest parent score for whether or not our lessons relate to outside of school and the lowest student score. I want to show you the other kind of slide that's in this report because it gives you an important piece of information. If you look at that same question that parents answered right at the bottom about being relative to the outside, lessons being relative to life outside of school, you'll see that 27% said, I don't know. So when we're looking at this data and we're making decisions about where people's feelings lie, we always have to take into account what was the situation from those that really didn't know enough to feel they could answer the question. Parents on this particular set of questions really had some shifts, again, in feedback and life out of school, but if you recall, we had kind of a big gray area there. We look at our staff, the not too much gray area, because of course they're in the schools, and we see how they scored themselves on all of those dimensional statements, and then we can see how they shifted from one year to the other. And the same is for students, and how they shifted. So that's academic support. We have an area called student support. Same thing, green, blue, gold, same groups of people. Is there a teacher counselor I can go to for help with a school problem? Is there somebody I can go to for help with a personal problem? Are students treated fairly regardless of race, culture, religion, etc.? Does the school offer a variety of activities and courses, and are students receiving the support they need for academic and career planning? And these are all pretty high. The middle one tends to be the lowest in the view of students and parents. Here again, we look at the parent statements, not too much gray. We look at how they changed over time, not too much. And we look at the students, not too much gray, not too much change over time. Oh, I'm sorry, that was staff. And the students. Pretty consistent. School leadership. This is whether administrators are making decisions in the best interest of students, whether administrators are perceived as clearly communicating mission and vision, whether school leaders are available when there's a concern, whether they are courteous when there's a concern, and when they're responsive when they have a concern. And again, you'll see the student numbers there are the lowest. When we look within each group, these are the parents, and there's a lot of gray, especially on the last three questions about how do administrators behave when I have a concern, which would lead me to believe that maybe there's just a number of people out there who have never come forward with a concern. Over time, we have some slippage. This is staff. Staff over time. Students. A lot of gray here. and students over time. Family involvement is the other area, and here we ask about families being informed about what we offer, families being encouraged to attend what we offer, encouraging families to volunteer, which is one of our lower scoring points, staff members and families treating each other with respect, which is up there, it's a good high score, respecting and valuing input from families, a little mix there, and the school using family input to improve instruction, another lower area. This is how families saw it, with a third of the people really not being sure if family input was being used to improve instruction. So some work to do there. This is how it changed over time. Again, that bottom question, having the greatest movement, lowering the scores. This is staff. And our staff isn't too sure if we're using family input to improve instruction. And this is the comparison over time, pretty similar to parents. And that's our students, a lot of gray there, and our students over time. This is probably the one where we found the most change in behavior, that's safety and behavior. And the questions were, are school staff members aware of safety security procedures? Are students aware of those procedures? This school is safe. Discipline is enforced fairly. Staff members and students treat each other with respect. Staff members are responsive when students report bullying, and bullying is not tolerated. And you can see in those areas where we have the lowest scores for both staff and parents and students, discipline is enforced fairly. Staff members responsive to reports of bullying, parent and student perception is that is low, and bullying not tolerated is a parent perception that is low. So here you have the parent breakout. So those scores, we have a lot of gray here. On the discipline fair, over 31% of the people said we're not sure, we don't know. On staff members reporting bullying, we had 40% of the parents saying we're not sure, we don't know. Over time, again, the safety factor slipped, as well as the bullying not being tolerated slipped, and discipline being enforced slipped. This is staff, and this is staff over time. Discipline enforced fairly had the greatest slippage, and then students. This is probably one of the more important slides that I want to spend some time on, and that's in terms of where did the group see our highest and lowest performing factors. Parents and guardians felt that we are very high in our performance around families being informed about all the things we have going on, families being encouraged to attend those things, having a teacher counselor available to help students with their school problems, offering a variety of activities and courses, and having high expectations for all students. And those are kudos. Those are things we're really glad we're doing well. But we also have some things we have to look more carefully at. That would be around teacher feedback. That would be around bullying. That would be around encouraging families to volunteer, enforcing discipline fairly, and using family input to improve instruction from the parent point of view. When you look at the staff point of view, you'll see that some of it is similar. The fact that there's a teacher counselor available for students is also way up there, with either personal problems or school problems. Having a variety of activities and courses is up there. Families being encouraged to attend and interact is up there, as is the school being safe. Things we have to look at more carefully is discipline and enforcement. Making sure that our administrators are available when there's a concern, making sure we encourage parents to volunteer, making sure that we're responsive, and making sure that we treat each other with respect. From the student's view, you also have some of the same things there. Teacher counselor being available to them, offering a variety of activities and courses, staff members being aware of safety, security, students being challenged, and students being aware of safety and security. That was good to know that the students believe that they are aware of that. We worked hard on that. Those things that we have to pay more attention to are that teachers successfully show students how lessons relate to real life, give timely and helpful feedback, discipline, again, mentioned by the students, and being treated fairly, mentioned by the students. We asked additional questions, which is on communication, whether parents were well informed, whether when they were emails and phone calls, did they get responses back from us? Were we ready to listen and accept student ideas? And did they know how their children performed? Parents, over time, staff, over time, students, over time. This was a big question. How strongly do you agree or disagree with this particular question? I would recommend my child's school district to a family member seeking a school for their children. You can see that parents, 77%, staff, 90%. This is the way it scored last time, 77%, 90%. Pretty similar. Staff, same. I'm sorry. Parents, 77% this time, 90% last time. This was a slippage on that question for parents. And staff, this was a question that stayed pretty much the same over time. The other things we asked students that you'll have in there are some perceptions about themselves, which I'm not going to go through here, but it gives you just another dimension about how students felt about being in our school. And we also have a lot more detail, building by building, which I will send out to you as well. There were open-ended questions on the survey. The company is still, that takes a little longer for them to tally and look for themes and be able to create a report over the open-ended questions that were asked, and we'll be getting that in soon, and when we get that in, I will also be forwarding that to you. That's it. Any questions?
Dr. Reese?
So, for myself and maybe the other new board members, what's the next steps then? Because obviously there's some themes and areas of, we'll call them opportunities, and then obviously we want to celebrate the successes, you know, amongst staff
Right.
and students and
Right.
families. So I guess what do we do now?
There were, as you could tell, a lot of high points in this survey, a lot of high points. And the points where we saw slippage or where we saw there's going to be several things. First of all, we began the examination of the district-wide report at Cabinet, and we also have given every principal the report for their own building. This will be an item that we reference back. For instance, we are preparing for you the update on the recovery report. We'll be looking at some of this data as metrics that will wrap into that recovery report that we bring to you, the update for this past year as well as the projection for how we go forward next year. Building principals will be looking at the data from the same point of view. What kind of action plans do they need to add to their school improvement plans? Where do they need to work with staff on some of these issues? Celebrating what they do well and making sure those efforts don't stop, because that's why we did do well, is because there's efforts in place to make sure we did well, but to also add to those efforts in some of those areas where either perception, it may be in an area where we just haven't communicated well enough what we're actually doing, and so we may have to up communication. It may be an area where there are some things we actually have to fix by putting different interventions and different supports in place. So that will be work that goes on this summer. It'll be work that the administrators and we talk about in August when we come back for our 2-day administrative retreat, and it'll be something we revisit during the course of the year, and then again next April we'll do the survey again to see where if we've made any movement.
Any other questions? James, Mike?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
and 44 seconds.
There were questions, or is that just presentation?
Well, we'll get that later in your evaluation that we have tonight, so it's coming up.
The concern with the group was that I had 70-some slides, and they were afraid we would all be here for 3 hours as I went through each one. So that's the purpose of the timing.
I see.
Oh, I forgot to get it off. Would you mind?
And I would say if any board member, as you dive into these later, if you have any questions or thoughts, ideas, obviously, to email Vicki, and sometimes some things will jump out at you, and you'll want to get some clarification. So that's always appropriate to do. Okay, item number 6, Board of Education matters. We have a field trip for our middle school and high school choir, and on September 15th through the 17th. And that was presented last meeting, and there is a motion. Would somebody like to make that motion? Dr. Reese.
Move to approve the OMS OHS choir field trip request to Camp Kopniak, Fenton, Michigan, September 15th to the 17th, 2023.
Is there support? Mr. Whitney, any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there anybody here from the choir department today?
No, they asked, and we indicated it wouldn't be necessary, but if you have questions about the trip, I can take it back and bring you the questions.
Actually, I had a question about the last trip. I was just hoping to hear what happened on the last trip. So I was hoping somebody was going to be here. So I'll send you an email on that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then we have item B, another recommendation for a field trip, the high school choir and dance field trip that was requested to go to New York City in May of 2024. And there is a motion on that. Mary?
Move to approve the OHS choir and dance field trip request to New York City, May 2024.
Is there support? Support, Heather. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. There you go. Thank you. Item C, superintendent evaluation. You want me to just go ahead and enter this into? So every year we evaluate a superintendent, and per the requirement of the Michigan Association of School Boards, and we have a rubric that we follow to do so. Last year we were given, we had an exemption, and the year prior to that. So we felt as it was important that we have one this year so that we can make sure that we're compliant in all areas for the state of Michigan. So the board uses the Michigan School Board Association's superintendent evaluation in carrying out the 6-month evaluation of Dr. Markovich. As per state guidelines, this evaluation covers superintendent's performance in 3 areas: professional practice, which was rated highly effective by this board; progress with goals was rated highly effective; student growth, which ranked all district administrators, including the superintendent, as highly effective. As effective, I'm sorry, thank you. The student growth metric, which is 40% of this rubric, and it's 40% of the total score for the district administrators. Combining all scores, Superintendent Markovich, total rating is highly effective. So on behalf of the board, we'd like to thank you for your service and look forward to working with you, or the rest of these board members look forward to working with you in the upcoming year. And we believe that there's a lot of progress that's been made, and it's the expectation that we will we'll be making more progress, and we'll continue to get better day after day, week after week. So just a personal note. I'm grateful. That's it. Mary?
Thank you. I would just like to add, I thought it was really, I think it's fantastic the way that you've connected with the students as well as parents and community members as we were watching all the graduates this year, and just the number of students who knew you, who looked at you and shook your hand or gave you a hug because they knew who you were, not just you could tell, it wasn't just because that's the superintendent and I have to do it. But I really appreciate that coming into Oxford and really connecting with all the people here. So thank you. I think that really made a positive effect on all of our graduates.
I can't recall how many times I leaned over to my left and I told board members, I said, it's amazing. She just, the kids just come up to her and they're, thank you, thank you, thank you. And they seem to have a genuine connection. And for you being here such a short time, and it was a genuine, motion of gratitude. So it was very nice sitting back.
My night, I'll tell you that. My night.
So anybody else? Okay. Yep,
Want me to read it?
please.
Move to approve the superintendent's evaluation for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Is there support? Support James. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you very much. Item 7, we have curriculum and instruction. Anita and Steve, we have elementary social studies curriculum approval.
Yes, last week Dr. Van Staveren came in and presented the review and pilot process and then made the recommendation for 2 curriculums to move forward with at the elementary level. So you have a motion on the floor.
Yes, thank you. Mary?
Move to approve to purchase the elementary social studies curriculum from Savas for the amount of $23,100 and TCI for the amount of $154,980 as presented.
Is there support? Dr. Reese? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have a lot of excited teachers. This is long overdue, so I appreciate it.
Very good.
It was a great presentation.
It was, Gary did a great job. Item B, benchmark assessments.
Okay, so we are here to present the 3rd set of data for the 22-23 school year. As a reminder, Public Act 144, particularly Section 98B, is actually a result of COVID learning. When the pandemic happened, we had been asked, all districts in the state of Michigan had been asked to develop plans and to put assessments in place to essentially monitor student progress as we are recouping lost and interrupted learning. And so part of it also is tied to funding, so they help offset some of the cost of our benchmark assessment. There was no heavy lifting for us as a district. This was already in place, so it was something that we essentially just picked up and kept moving. And so one of the aspects of the law requires us to present overall data and then also break it up by demographics. And so you'll see in your board packet the overall goal, if we met it or not, and then a breakdown by demographics. So for our seated, and we've broken these down in between virtual and seated goals. So for our seated goals, we used our FAST A reading and A math screener. And so for reading, our goal was to improve from fall to spring by at least 15 points. And then in math, our goal was to improve by at least 6 points from fall to spring. I just want to make note, I did put this on the last slide, that we had an opportunity to write any type of goal that we wanted, and we chose to look at the prior to the pandemic, what was our trajectory like and what was our growth from fall to spring? And we said we want to aim high and try to maintain that. And so I know you probably remember last spring, I was a little bit emotional, and I am equally probably as emotional this spring that we did not meet these goals, but we were so close. And which really says that we've done a lot of acceleration. And even though we didn't meet the goals, we came so much closer than we did last year. And so in reading, you will see that we were 0.3 short of meeting that goal overall. So we improved by 14.7, thank you. And the next slide shows the breakdown by students. One of the things to call your attention to, and I didn't put it on the slides because there's like too many numbers, but in all of the areas except for I think one subgroup, we are above the national average as deemed by the scale score by FAST. So even though we didn't make our own goals that we set, our students are performing above the national average based on the FAST assessment. Same thing in math, we were 0.5 short of that goal. And then here again is the breakdown by demographics, student groups. So, my virtual friends, they're ambitious. I love all the work that they have been doing. I don't think Jordan is here, but Janet is here. Again, it could have been very easy to choose a simple assessment, but especially at the elementary level, Dr. Dennis, I can call him now, he has been really instrumental in putting in some additional assessments that actually give us a more accurate understanding of where our students are in the virtual setting. And so the goals that we set were very ambitious, and probably more ambitious before we even understood the present level of the students that we're getting. And so in reading go back down for me, sorry. Sorry. So in reading, by the end of the year, we were expecting to move students in grades D, K, and 2 through 5 by 2 levels, and in first grade by at least 5. That seems a little bit maybe off, but the amount of improvement that normally happens in first grade, that's why that rate of growth, again, we were ambitious with that. As students get older, the levels of improvement are just smaller. It might be just like 1 or 2 levels. And so also when we were writing those goals, we did not take into account how many kids would actually already be there, like be at the standard. And so it kind of skewed our data. So this goal was not met in reading. So you can see the number of students that improved by 2 levels was 78%. So again, pretty nice growth there. And then for the first grade, the 33%, that seems low, but it didn't take into account the number of kids that were at the benchmark. And so if we are being asked to do this again next year, we would revisit how we would write this to be more accurate in our growth. One of the things that OVA has taken on is they're doing these assessments one-on-one in person with all the students, which gives us so much more information than a lot of times the computer assessment. We get to see their behaviors as far as how they're reading, what strategies they're applying, and it allows us to be more diagnostic in our approach to the intervention. And so a lot of heavy lifting there. OVA did make their goals in NWEA. Their goal was in both reading and math to meet the national average, and they did do that. And so again, demographics. Same thing for math. OVA at the elementary level is instituting a new screener assessment where students are being assessed on readiness standards. Again, in person, and we're able to see what they're actually able to do. And then that then results in an intervention based on which standards they may or may not have passed. So again, a lofty goal there. At least 70% of students will achieve mastery and readiness on the readiness standards of the current grade level. We did not meet that goal, but a lot of great progress towards that, but they did meet the NWEA goal for upper or for middle school. Yep. Keep going all the way. Yep. One more. So again, just a couple of notes. So we did set high goals using pre-pandemic trends. It's kind of like go big or go home. That's what we're here to do, is to educate kids, and setting just a mediocre goal just to meet a goal is not in our system or vocabulary. So unfortunately we didn't meet it, but we definitely, it's not for lack of trying on the staff's part. Again, while some goals were not met, students are performing above the national average or mean in general. And the new assessments and diagnostics are being used at OVA elementary programs that provide more detailed information, which gives us an opportunity to intervene more intentionally. And then we'll come in September and provide an update on our summer engagement programs. We're just getting those launched. Summer school started for the middle school. Our SEL activities are going. We start elementary summer school after the 4th of July, so we'll have a lot of going on. We're currently servicing hundreds of kids at OELC, and so it might be summer, but we are like up and going. We are seeing about 200 kids in the seated elementary school opportunity, about 200 kids at the seated high school, middle school opportunity. OVA has really improved their participation. Last year, I think they had 1 or 2 students participate in their virtual summer school, and this year they have 46 students, and it's really tailored to where the kids are because of the diagnostics that they have on the students. And all the programs are tailored to student needs. I actually had a really good conversation with a parent today who called about why one of her daughters was invited and one wasn't. And when I explained it, she was like, "Oh wow, you guys put a lot more thought to that than I thought." And I said, "I'm so glad you called because I got to explain that to you." Every year we rewrite the curriculum based on the needs of the students attending. And so that's a lot of work, but we can only do that because of the great data that we have. And a big part of who helps us manage that data is Sean Marshall, and she helped pull a lot of this data together. So we can't do what we do without her support as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Mary?
I'm full of comments tonight. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the data and reiterating that it's not just data that sits out there like, here we go, let's collect some data. But we're tailoring the interventions, and tailoring these programs to what the student needs are. And I remember when we started all this at 2020, 21, whenever that was, so long ago. But I remember the discussions about setting those high standards, and I continue to support you in doing that. The students aren't going to achieve unless we set high goals. So I think that's great that we keep doing this. And it's not just about hitting the goals. I see it's also about seeing where they need that intervention. So thank you for the data and the well thought out presentation.
Anybody else? I have a quick question on the OVA number. Is that OVA number measured against all virtual students or all seated students? I guess maybe a different way to ask the question is, are we measuring that number against other virtual students throughout either the country or the state, or is that just an average against every student that is in the population?
It's measured against any student in the United States that takes that assessment,
Okay, so it's
virtual
not-
or seated.
So it's just not comparing virtual against virtual.
Correct.
It's virtual against every. Okay,
Correct.
good. It's even a little bit more impressive of a number now that you look at it that way. Thank you.
Great. And I do want to say that we do have some OVA students participating in a seated opportunity. So it's, some students, we present to them a choice if that's a better fit. And so I know it seems like 46 students there. I mean, we do have some of those students in the 200 are also some of our virtual kids.
Very good. Anything else? All right, item C, our OVA curriculum presentation.
Fantastic. Well, want to invite up Caitlin Martin, who helped lead the curriculum review and development at OVA, and I'll pass it off to you.
Good evening. Like Steve said, my name is Caitlin Martin. I am one of the secondary English teachers at OVA, and we are here to present some new curriculum options. So the new learning option that we have is we are seeking approval for the Blackbird curriculum for our ELA hybrid sites grades 9 through 12. So the reasons for this addition, currently we have an MOU with Bookshark. That MOU is ending, so we do have a gap in our curriculum that needs to be filled for our high school students. We are also focusing on the writing process at OVA and making sure that students understand that this is a process, not just an end product, and working through that with them. And this curriculum lends itself really well to that. It is a solid option for secondary. Like I said, it's needed, that's missing. And then it also works well with our alignment K through 12. So back a couple months ago, we were here for the K through 8 curriculum approval for Blackbird. This allows for that consistency for our students who are at our hybrid sites, K through 12, to continue on with the same curriculum. And it allows us to look at scope and sequence and rigor both vertically and horizontally across the curriculum. So some of the strengths of this curriculum is there is a really strong balance between reading and writing, which is something that we really want to see in our ELA courses. Students will read about 7 novels a year, and those novels will be supported with writing instruction and writing formative and summative assessments. There are strong and diverse literature texts throughout all grades, all 4 grades, expose students to very different types of literature. We have Shakespeare plays, American drama plays, so it just really exposes them to those different levels of reading. There are strong presence of graphic organizers and literature analysis tools, which really speaks to that writing process that I spoke about before and helping students organize their thoughts and ideas to finish that end product. This is also used in hybrid schools across the country. It is well known to our homeschool communities, so we did want to find a curriculum that would also work well with our families at our hybrid sites. Compared to some other curriculum options that we did look at, we liked Blackbird because of the rigorous writing process, the robust literature curriculum in terms of the 7 novels that they will read over the course of a year, and then you multiply that times 4, they're exposed to a lot of books. And then also the use of Operation Lexicon. That is another component of this curriculum which is used to intentionally increase students' vocabulary. So we liked that component of it as well. And then just an additional note, the OVA team has also supplemented some lessons and some resources to strengthen some of the standards throughout the curriculum if we saw that that was necessary. So this is just kind of a picture of what our students would receive. We have the 9th and 11th grade materials listed there. So they would receive their novels. The red literature workbooks support each novel. So there is a red workbook for each novel. Then you have the Operation Lexicon is that green book for the vocabulary support. And then the Writer's Toolbox is the writing curriculum that also goes along with each grade level, and it gets more rigorous as students increase in their grades. So then we have our novels. So the novels, like I said, are very diverse. We looked at different elements of them to support both social emotional learning in our students, cross-curricular themes, and then also supporting Oxford's Portrait of a Graduate components as well through both reading and writing. So the next few slides, I'm going to just kind of go through really quickly. These will, they're in your packet. You can read through them if you want, but they're just the texts that are in each grade. So you'll see the 7 texts here for each grade. 11th grade has an American play, and then 12th grade has Othello for Shakespeare. And then we have our novel projects. So these novel projects offer students a lot of voice and choice, which is something that we are really big proponents of. And what that means is that students will get to show how they demonstrate what they have learned. So in this case, there is a writing option for the novel summative assessments, and there is also a creative project. So students get to pick their path, and then once they pick their path, they get to choose what writing prompt they answer or what creative project they do. So it gives them the opportunity to take ownership of their knowledge and show us what they've learned through their reading. And that is all I have for you. So what questions can I answer?
Any questions? Go ahead, Mary.
Thanks. The Operation Lexicon, what type of book is that? I'm not familiar with that.
So
reference material.
that's a workbook that the Blackbird curriculum created. So it's their workbook. But what students do is they will be exposed weekly to a different vocabulary word, and they will use that word in different ways. They might write a short story. They'll look up, create their own definition. So it's a workbook that students will get that will support their writing.
Oh, that sounds great. And I like this. It's been a little while since I've been in 9th through 12th. But I think it sure would have been helpful to have some more support in writing instead of just introduction, body, and conclusion. So thank you. Thank you for this information. It seems really well thought out. And I like that it, besides meshing with what we've already approved, that a lot of our students are already familiar with it. So thanks. Thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8, Finance and Operation, Mr. Barna.
Good evening. I have no formal presentation this evening, but there are 2 resolutions up for you in the beginning, both A and B, to discuss both the 2023 and fiscal year 24 resolutions for both the general fund as well as all of the other ancillary funds that we have here in the district.
Somebody like to make that motion, Dr. Reese?
Move and support to approve the 2022-2023 final amended general fund budget for the general fund, capital project fund, student activity fund, community service fund, food service fund, debt retirement fund, and millages as presented.
Is there support? Support, Mary. Any discussion? I will say that I looked over this budget, Sam, and I recall the number of $103,072,329. It is a far cry from the $62 million budget we had 11 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I think that shows, obviously there's some numbers in there as we were presented before, numbers because of circumstances that driving that number up higher, but it is a testament to the growth of this district and the hard work of our staff and our administrators.
Absolutely, 100%. OVA, obviously, and our Share Time program has really shown the growth for the district. And as you had stated, I arrived here back in 2015, and to my recollection, that budget was right around the $60-odd million mark. And so you couple the growth with, obviously, the federal funds that we've received in addition to some of the state grant and funding that we've received recently. And obviously, you see a budget here estimated to be $103 million. So as you look around the districts in Oakland County, we're right up there with most of them in terms of a budgetary figure for our operating fund.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this proposed budget that we had the presentation on? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now our item B, which is 2023-2024 proposed general fund budget. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Barnard? Do you want to? Yep, we're just going to go with what we had before on our last presentation. So is there a motion on that one? Mary?
Moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 proposed general fund budget for the general fund, capital project fund, student activity fund, community service fund, food service fund, debt retirement fund, and millages as presented.
Is there support? Support, Dr. Reese. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item C, transportation purchase request for minibuses.
That's right. So what we have in front of you, if you recall, several of you that have been here in the most recent past, 3 or 4 years ago, we made a purchase of also, I believe it was 2 minibuses about 3 or 4 years ago. And so that is part of our basically capital purchase for buses. You know, as the last time we purchased new buses, they were the large buses, the 70 passenger plus, 65 passenger as well. These 3 are minibuses actually, and see, these are actually 40, I believe 48 or 49 passenger buses that are used. They're coming off of leases in the state of Michigan, and they have relatively low miles, and new buses that are of this make, as well as with these amenities, in today's dollars are approximately $70,000 new. So a fair amount of savings for some what we consider lightly used buses. And we, again, won't be increasing our fleet. These will be replacing 3 of our buses that we currently have that are getting a little long in the tooth.
Okay.
That was 3, Sam?
3, yes.
And any questions? Mike?
What do we do with the old buses? Do we scrap them or do we try to resell them as well?
Yeah, we actually auction them when we can, and so the majority of the time we are auctioning these buses. We post and we auction them off, and usually we receive a fair amount of money depending on the type of bus that it is and obviously what demand is there at the current time. In addition to the fact, if it's really, really worn down, we'll end up scrapping it for the metal. So, but that hasn't been done in some time.
Mike, with all those kids, are your wheels spinning on what? I think
Yeah,
7?
No, I don't think
I'll tell you what, just bid high, please, okay?
I've got
so.
the 15 passenger van. I think I'm good for a little while.
I want to come over one day when you guys are getting ready to go to a function, because that would be something to see.
I think a few of them have air conditioning as well, and it's cold and it works, so, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Mary?
Sam, where was this budgeted for? Where is this coming out of,
So
the funds for this?
we originally budgeted this out of the transportation budget within the general fund. Depending on, so since this was originally part and planned to be part of the 23 fiscal year, we are looking for this to come out of the 24 budget. And so depending on how things go in terms of the general fund for next year, we may be asking the board potentially to look at if we have the funds in the capital project fund. So it's just really kind of, yeah, we'll see where we land. That's the most important point for fiscal year 23. So
But we knew this was coming because we know
we did. I
the
mean, this
length
is
of we know the life, the length of service for the buses that we've had.
that's correct. And again, these are replacing two buses that they're replacing are, I believe, 2012s. Okay, and the third one is a 2007. So again, we try to get as much value out of any vehicle that we own, any asset that we own, and this is true here.
Now, we just ordered, or we just installed, we were getting cameras for these smaller buses, so if anything that is in the other buses will be able to transfer over?
That's right. That's my my knowledge base is that what we will take from these existing buses prior to either auctioning them, I believe we're going to auction all 3 of them, we will transfer all that technology. So, and I want to thank Mike Strong here, that he's actually here in the audience from Transportation. Mike, thanks for coming this evening as well. So, just in case I misspeak in any way, shape, or form. How am I doing, by the way? All right? Okay, good.
And so I'm going to ask the question since Mike's here. We've inspected all of them as far as we could for their durability, for their, Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay,
They
so
come.
that, and I guess that was more of the question. Are these, when we purchase them, do they go through a state inspection? That's what Ron had asked.
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
That's a requirement. Good question.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. I have two more items on the
Yep.
agenda, I believe, under me, and I may need a little help from Steve, actually, because they are curricular related. So I believe the first one is the purchase of some devices for our CTE lab.
Yes. So we have, we talking about the intercom?
Yep, yeah,
Proposal? Okay.
we're seeking approval for 32 HP Z-books for our Megatronics and Engineering program. This would not come from our general fund. It's $44,896. This would come from CTE 61A added cost dollars. Those are provided to us by the state of Michigan for various CTE programs that go above and beyond the cost of non-CTE programs. So they're earmarked for things like Megatronics, automotive. If you recall, we approved a lift earlier in the year. That's another example of programs that have a higher cost to run and operate, and Megatronics is one of those. Our laptops right now won't have the capacity for updates to the current software, and then a few new software that we intend to run in these classes. And so with that exceeding what they hold right now, we are looking to purchase new laptops that can maintain that. We'll take these laptops and we'll repurpose them down to our health science classes. Those run off of more web-based programs with more than enough capacity there. And then those health science laptops we're looking right now, but will likely go back down to the middle school for use, just for general student use here.
Okay. And then, any questions on those? All right.
So what school year is that? Is that for this fall?
This is for this upcoming school year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to have those in time?
We certainly hope so.
Okay.
We believe so. Sash believes we will be able to get those in time for the start of the school year.
Now, if you can just explain how the CTE funds work too. So is this, we're approving this as a purchase for Oxford Schools, but it's, can you just explain how the CTE funding works? Because it doesn't come out of our budget, but we're approving it.
Yeah, absolutely. Will not come from the district's general fund. It comes from our CTE 61A added cost dollars. So we earmark those, again, for different programs that have higher costs, like the few that I mentioned. And so we do a needs assessment each year to understand what will we need in each of these higher costs and operating programs. We also consult with our advisory CTE committee, and so we connect with folks in the community from different businesses to see what might be some tools and software that we may want to consider looking into to help our students learn, to better prepare them for whatever technical college or jobs that they may want to go into. So we also go off with advisement.
Right. And that's the special funding that we get from the state.
Yeah, the advisory group is one that we hold. That's one of the CTE requirements.
Right.
But the added cost comes from the state to districts that have higher cost programs like the few I mentioned.
Great. And I've served on those advisory boards before, and it's really been great. I think James still does that, don't you, James? Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think Aaron does as well. I said
Yeah.
as the chairperson for the technology with Ms. Monkevich and such, yeah.
Yep, so that's great too. That's that's also another way that we are getting input from our community. These are the jobs that our students are going to be going to. These are the people who are going to be hiring them here, in our own area, giving us input on the things that we need to have. So
Yeah, so the need is a software based on the curriculum, getting advisement from our different advisory groups, and then that software requires a certain capacity in a laptop, one of which is not sufficient right now, and that's why we're requesting the approval to get new laptops with that capacity to then recycle down these to health science.
fantastic. Thank you.
Just a quick question, it may be a Sam question. Those dollars, although they are the 61A dollars, do we pay for them with general fund dollars and then that money gets reimbursed through the state? Or is it just?
Yes, that's true. The $61A actually are a general fund, so they're Fund 11, so that's how they do come in as revenue. But again, that is what obviously Steve had referred to, is that's where it's coming from. There's the source. But internally, we do book it to the general fund.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Then there's item E, the technology student laptop purchase request.
Okay. So this is part of the Chromebook yearly refresh plan for both our seated and our OVA students.
Okay. Did everybody have a chance to look at that? $1,600, just to give you a point of reference, that's pretty,
1,600 laptops.
correct,
Yeah.
1,600 laptops. It's pretty consistent with where we have been in the past.
Yes.
Year over year, we seem to be trending right around that 15, 16, 1,700. There was a little bit of a spike,
COVID.
COVID, when we had to make sure that everybody had ways of communicating back and forth, because they may not have had that access at home. So that number, this number is a little lower than what we've had in the past, but this is a pretty standard number for this district. So,
Yes, and we're presenting it as one quote because as a technology department, we meet with OVA and Sosh and Gary together. So we want to be a unified group.
and we're going to lean on you technology guys if there's questions with anything, so when it comes for a vote. Okay? Very good, thank you. Okay. Okay, we have unscheduled audience participation. That we will just, does anybody need a break? I think we'll just go right into it. Okay? Kit Grabowski. You got your clock? Okay.
Thank you. Again.
Oh,
Sorry.
That's a really quick 3 minutes. Like 3 seconds.
All right, we'll try that again.
Just a quick note that doesn't really have anything to do with what I wanted to say. Mary, you asked about the choir trip early from this year. It was actually canceled because they did not have enough students that wanted to participate. They only had about 20. So that's what happened with that one. On to what I want to talk about. For a year now, we've been listening to, we're going into closed session. We've been hearing that Guideposts is waiting for this information or that information. And I'm really tired of hearing it. There's zero reason why it should be taking this long, other than the fact that this board seems to be being led around by a shoestring or whatever from legal counsel from somewhere. Whether it is the legal counsel that the school board has hired, or it is the legal counsel of the insurance companies, or whomever, it does not seem like it is being led by you guys. I am blessed that my children were not at school that day. We had COVID. But my boys were in the middle of about 150 text messages of, "Are you okay?" I will never forget my son's face as he walked in and told me that there was an active shooter. I will never forget the sound of my best friend's dad calling to say, "Do you need me to pick up the boys?" Because he lives here in town and it would have been easier. I will never forget calling my best friend who had moved to Flint, whose daughter still went here, saying, "Do you need me to go get Joe?" I'm tired of waiting for answers, and I would be willing to bet the majority of this community is tired of waiting for answers. I am begging you, imploring you, whatever you want to call it, to stop letting the lawyers lead you around by the drawstrings. You guys have been given governmental immunity, and I am really tired of them getting to hide behind it. This community deserves answers. There have been multiple shootings in other schools, in other areas of the country over the course of the last year and a half. They have answers. Why doesn't Oxford? Why can't you guys stand up to the freaking lawyers and get the answers out to the people who deserve them? Why should anybody trust sending the kids back to Oxford when you guys talk about wanting to be transparent, and yet you're hiding behind closed sessions that is doing nothing but protecting the lawyers? Thank you.
Kristen Carr.
All right. I don't know how to follow up with that, but my name is Kristen Carr. I lived in Oxford for 6 years. My two oldest sons grew up attending Lakeville. Now my oldest is a soon-to-be 8th grader here at OMS. When we left Oxford last year, we moved to Imlay City. When we left, I left with a now 9-year-old who prays to God every morning before he goes to school that a shooter doesn't come to his new school too. Every day, he wakes up and does that. Do you know how hard it is to tell him that I can't promise that? What if his new school had every indication that something was wrong and they chose to do nothing? Not only did they ignore every sign and every clue, but they chose to keep the truth to themselves. They chose to keep the parents of 4 lost children in the dark. What if just a couple of people had the ability to change that? To do what was right and to learn from their mistakes. To admit that they failed our children so we can learn to move on. I've watched a couple of board meetings recently that former board members Tom Donnelly and Corey Bailey have asked you all over and over again to provide guideposts with the documents and the interviews that they've been asking for. Why haven't you? They've asked for you to vote to release them from this, what I'm understanding is some sort of closed meeting gag order, so they can tell the families and the community the truth about what happened leading up to and the day of November 30th. Why won't you? There are a couple of you who were elected to the board, that we helped get elected to the board, that we hoped you would stand up against things like this. Why won't you? We want to know exactly what you guys are hiding. Thank you.
Bobby Root.
Good evening. It's been a little bit since I've been here, but thought it was a good time to jump in. Oxford Community Schools, where the globe is our campus, yet we've lost the respect of our community. Does that resonate with you guys at all? We've lost the respect of our community, yet the globe is our campus. Now, that sounds like a divisive statement, doesn't it? I'm no stranger to be called divisive. I've had community members, district staff, teachers, even board members reach out to me expressing their thoughts on my divisiveness. Yet I had a realization this week. Maybe I am sometimes divisive. And maybe sometimes that's a good thing. Because I am divisive towards lies, deceit. I'm divisive towards school boards abusing closed sessions. I'm divisive towards threatening and silencing former board members. I'm divisive against district attorneys controlling an elected body, blocking and slowing the guidepost report, and ultimately I'm divisive towards not representing a community and, more importantly, victims who have been begging for transparency for over a year and a half now. These things hold a community back from healing. These things are what lead to a 13% drop or slippage in families who would no longer recommend this district to others. How many people does that 13% represent. These things are not Team O, and it's these things that lead to division, not my calling them out. So how do we unite? Well, it's past time to be honest to the community. It's past time for some board members to start speaking up. It's past time to stop abusing the closed sessions and keep your conversations open to the public. It's past time to remove your gag order over Tom and Corey. It's past time to give guideposts the information they need. It's past time to start making your own decisions rather than allowing the district attorney, Mullins, to control the strings from behind the scenes. It's past time to be truly and completely transparent with those who you claim to represent. You don't and you can't unite under a veil of lies and deceit. You unite under the truth. Thank you.
Okay. I have our scheduled activities that we have on here. Administrative clarification, Dr. Markovich. And when you're done, I have a point of clarification as well.
I have none. I just want to alert anyone here, anyone listening, and people who are going to be... I want to alert anyone here, anyone listening, anyone interested. We do have, we get air quality alerts, and because of fires again in the area, this area is under a air quality alert, which means tomorrow we'll be watching these hourly. And if it looks like that air quality continues to be bad, any of our summer school students that are outside will be brought inside. But for those of you who may have asthma or other kinds of issues, don't go running to your car tonight. Walk slow.
Okay. So I wanted to address a couple things. While some folks may believe that when we go into closed session, it's to gain information. Last week, as Bobby brought up and a couple of other people brought up, Tom and Corey asked us to release them from governmental immunity, closed session conversations. I will reiterate what I told them last time. Contacted several lawyers that are not involved in this litigation, asked them for their opinion. Those lawyers, to a person, said, it is not the board's individual board members that have closed session under the Open Meetings Act where they can't speak in closed session. It's the privilege of the entire board. What does that mean? I asked him, I said, so clarify that for me in terms that I can bring back to the rest of the board. There isn't a judge that will go out and say, so if they wanted to be released from those closed sessions, we can't grant them that. They know that the opportunity to have that done is to petition the judge in this case. That's what I informed them of before. My assumption is that they ran that by their attorney that they hired. That attorney also knows that that is the way to get this done. However, they're not petitioning the courts. What they do instead is they come up here and they call us liars and hiding behind things. We don't have that ability if we even wanted to do so. We would have to go to the judge to have them released from those Open Meetings Act conversations during closed session. It just, I don't know how to explain it so that so that Tom and Corey can understand it, but I guarantee you their attorney that they hired knows that that's the law, and that's the course in order to get those conversations brought up to open. If they want to do it, they can go petition the court.
And if anybody doesn't believe that, they should do their own fact-checking. Call any lawyer, a friend of yours, a neighbor, anybody you want, and ask them if that's a fact. Because I called MASB today, which is the Michigan Association of School Boards, who has no association to us. They're not helping us or not helping us. They are the Michigan Association of all school boards, and asked them to clarify it again. It is not up to this 7-person board. If all of us were not here and it was an entirety new 7 people, it wouldn't be up to them. No school board has the authority to do that. So they're showcasing to get people to show their support and you know, you all think that they're crusaders of integrity. I assure you that they are not.
You guys are.
And then, excuse me, you've had your opportunity. So then, on top of that, I
What I'm
want
saying is they're asking us to do something that we don't have the ability to do, and they're aware of it. They have a lawyer who I'm sure that they've spoken to. And they're aware of it. We've also explained to them why we cannot. This has been addressed several times. So them coming up and addressing our integrity and calling us out, well,
And then,
That's
as far as the guidepost report to come out, I can just tell you I've spent countless hours in the last 4 months trying to get the report out, trying to get families what they deserve. There are things that are happening with the prosecutor that they don't want this information out right now. They have a case that they're trying to make against 2 parents. And until that happens, there's information that Guidepost was here and they told you. The information that they have is under a protective order with the prosecutor. They're working through that. We've had several conversations asking them to do so, to get it quicker, and we haven't had that. It's just the explanation, and it's yours to digest however you may see fit. So with that, do you have anything, other clarifications? Final board comments? Anybody? Heather?
Well, Dan, this is your last meeting, so a few things can't go unsaid. You know, Dan has given 10.5 years to this district. That's 10.5 years of volunteering. He is a hard worker. He is dedicated. He is loyal. He is trustworthy, whether you agree with him or not. He brings the information to the table, and he always puts students and staff first. I talked a lot about what a servant leader is when we were talking about Ken. And a lot of those same attributes are for Dan. And he has given a lot to this community, not just in his time, but his dedication. And he's kind. And he is truly a wildcat. He really is. He is Timo. He is given a lot. So I want to thank him for his service. 10.5 years is a long, long time. We've got a little something that we wanted to give him. So, thank you.
Thank you. Everybody else? Thank you, Heather. No? So this will be, I guess, my last comment as a board member here. It has been, it's been an honor. Yeah, that's what I'm going to probably leave it at, because I probably won't get through the whole thing. But it's been an honor. You know, this community is it's a great community, and we've got a tremendous school district staff, school district administrators, and more importantly, we've got tremendous students in this district. And I think my goal has always been to make sure that their needs are placed first, and I will say that I won't be far away. I'll be around, and I think the story isn't, my involvement with Oxford, I don't think is over. It'll just be in a different role. And I think it's important that thank Angela, because when I'm running around over the 8 or 9 states that I cover, she said, hey, did you get that email? Make sure you look at it really quick, and I need an answer for you, and usually in 5 minutes, but, so I'll pull over, I'll stop, and when I see the phone ring, when it's Angela, I make sure I pick it up, because she's really the person that keeps me focused on making sure that we have everything we need. And of course, Dr. Markovich, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and learn. So, thanks.
Well, I have to tell you, it's been a pleasure for me too, but I will never forget that you said it was up to Heather to get me here, and that you would make sure I stayed. And for the most part, I'm really glad you did, and it's been a privilege working with you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, the meeting is adjourned.